President. And I want to welcome our viewers as well as the board members to the February 23rd, 2022 board meeting. As always, we start with the public forum, and for our viewers who aren't familiar with this, the public forum provides an opportunity for the community to share thoughts, concerns, or feedback about TriMet or its services. If you wish to provide comment, you only need to sign up and virtually raise your hand, and when it's your turn, you'll be called on. We will now go through a list of people who've signed up by virtually raising their hand, and we ask those who do speak to limit your comments to 3 minutes. So let's begin. Kim, who is our first speaker?
Good morning, President Simmons and members of the board. Right now, I do not see any individuals with their hands raised.
All right. Well, we will proceed then with board reports, and I'll close the public forum. I'd like to first invite Director Edwards to provide an update from the latest meeting of the Committee on Accessible Transportation. Director Edwards?
President Simmons, I do not see Director Edwards in the meeting, so our tech team is reaching out to him to help it with any.
Okay, very good. We will move on then to the next board report. And so I'm going to invite Vice President Irish Bauman to provide an update on the most recent Finance and Audit Committee report. Director Bauman?
Yes, good morning, everyone. Can you all hear me? Great. All right. The Finance and Audit Committee just met this morning, 8 o'clock this morning, and I'm going to read from my notes. So I apologize for looking away from the screen while I talk to you. So there were 2 items on the agenda this morning. One was to review the changes to the investment policy that the board's going to consider today, and also to talk about the status of the investment portfolio. Kara Fitzpatrick talked to us about the status of the investment portfolio. It has grown considerably as of December 31st of 21 over a year before, and that's because of 2 matters primarily: the issuance of bonds in October of 2021 and then federal COVID related funds. The investment portfolio as of the end of last year was $912 million. That they, to the extent those funds are restricted funds, they are restricted because they're held for capital projects and debt service primarily. The portfolio is a mix of very conservative and safe investments in assets like U.S. Treasuries. They showed us, or Kara showed us, that the interest rates dropped considerably during the pandemic, and that means that the earnings on the investments are quite low. The effective interest rate of return as of December 31st was just 0.35%. We then reviewed the changes to the investment policy, and the board's going to be hearing more about that later in this meeting. They are some changes that expand some of the ability to invest in commercial paper and give some flexibility around investment maturity. The policies are still quite conservative, but the hope is that this will improve some of the returns on the agency's investment portfolio. And the last item on the agenda was a review of the streetcar IGA, and that's an agreement between TriMet and the city relating to operating of the Portland streetcar. And this will be coming before the board next month. I will suffice it to say it is a complex contract, but the purpose of it is to keep the streetcar running, as it's a valuable asset to the city and TriMet as well. And that is the end of my report, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Are there any questions for Director Bauman? Seeing none, I want to thank you, Director Bauman, and I see that Director Edwards is now with us. Director Edwards, are you able to provide us with an update on the latest meeting on the Committee on Accessible Transportation?
No, I am not. I had a I took a mini vacation last week, and I haven't received my the transcripted agenda or the transcripted minutes yet.
Okay.
And when I receive those, I will submit a report, and I will get it to Kimberly so that she can share it with the rest of the board.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Thank you
Mhm.
very much. Okay, so now we're going to go on to Director Kim for a report on the Metro Policy Advisory Committee. Director
course.
Kim?
Yep. Well, good morning, everyone. Last meeting was January 26th for MPAC, and Metro staff provided an overview of the role of the MPAC and the topics for the year, for especially for the new members. And as you you can imagine, there are new members from different regions as they were recently gotten elected and started their new roles. So the main discussion item was on the I-205 tolling project and some discussion on the 2023 regional um, that transportation plan update that was scheduled was actually postponed because the tolling project discussion ran quite long. And for the I-205 tolling discussion, ODOT reviewed the need for a proposed regional transportation plan amendment to align the environmental analysis for the tolling project with the construction, and the represent various representatives from many regions expressed their dismay regarding overall communication method and the process, but that discussion is to be continued. And in connection with this I-205 tolling discussion, I understand our TriMet staff is also working with ODOT to identify transit improvements to mitigate the impacts of tolling, how those projects will be funded, and how a future tolling program could integrate with TriMet's low-income fare program. With respect to this month's meeting, which will happen tonight, we'll be discussing values and outcomes for the 23 regional transportation plan, as well as the emerging transportation trends. And lastly, also the food scraps requirements policy update. So that's all.
Okay. Thank you, Director Kim. And does anyone have any questions or comments? Seeing none, then we're going to move on for an update from Director Lewis on the Reimagining Public Safety Committee. Director Lewis?
Thank you, President Simmons. Good morning, everyone. The Reimagining Public Safety Committee met on February 15th, pretty much by Zoom, and it was well attended. The meeting now includes a regularly scheduled security update from Director Pat Williams, which is really great, highlighting any recent security-related incidences on the system. We felt that was important to, answer any questions, but long as they don't interfere with any ongoing court issues. The committee also reviewed we're all excited, the final draft of the community training RFP. And remember the new types of training, it's 4 new types of training for line staff and system partners. Based on the feedback, we divided the RFP into 3 main mini grants. First one is Enhanced Community Informed DEI Training. The second is Rider Support Training. And the third is Enhanced Rider Engagement and Support Training. And we are really confident that we're going to get many submissions from most of the community-based organizations, and even a few from our members that sit at our table. We figure we'll average about 13 to 18 proposals, ranging anywhere from 5 to 10,000. We launched the RFP proposal on Friday, February 25th. There will be an info session. Everyone's welcome to attend March 9th on Zoom. You can find that on our on the website. And then the applications are due by 5 o'clock on March 25th. So that is out the door. We are really excited about that. Our meeting also included an overview of security personnel that is on the system, their roles and their responsibilities. And this was presented by Justin Dillon, the TriMets manager on public safety operations. We also encouraged our members and anyone to do a along with the safety response team or the customer safety supervisor, so that members of the committee can further have a greater knowledge of the system and how the roles of our safety response team and safety supervisors interact with the public. And we felt that this will help them to identify any gaps and offer any solutions as we head into our work working on the safety response team, which is at our next meeting, March 15th. And also at that meeting, we'll have some updates from our RFPs. That concludes my report. Any questions?
Thank you, Director Lewis. I'm just excited to see the progress that is starting to be made in terms of implementing some of the recommendations. Does anyone have any questions or comments for Director Lewis? Seeing none, then we're going to go to our final report, which is going to be provided to us by Director Way, and it's on an update from the Transit Equity Advisory Committee. Director Way?
Thank you, President Simmons. Can you all hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. So I will also be reading off of a notes page, so I apologize if I am not directly looking at the screen, although everybody looks great this morning. So just wanted to say that. So TIAC met on February 8th. Several updates were provided by staff as well as agency announcements. So I'll just bullet point go through the following. Many of you know we celebrated Rosa Parks' birthday on February 4th. TriMet did not collect fares that day. And that is, it's been called as Rosa Parks Transit Equity Day. That same day, towards the evening, there was also a Transit Equity Day that was organized by Bus Riders Unite with Opal, Youth versus ODOT, Sunrise PDX, and other community groups. They gathered at the TriMet Lost and Found and really just called into attention a lot of issues around climate change, transit equity, and it was led by young people, led by youth. About 50 folks attended that event. I was there, and Director Edwards was there as well. So it was just great to see some of the young folks really talk about their experiences. TriMet, as we all know, is also hiring. We have been highlighting the bonuses, as well as just really encouraging TIAC members to share the word with the community. We also shared Portland Street Trust 2022 Oregon Transportation Summit, which is scheduled in April 25th through the 27th. And this is a great opportunity for our TIAC members to attend, as we have in previous years. I'm also happy to report that we have been having a great partnership with the Oregon Health Authority. So far, we have provided over 44,000 transit fares for those facing challenges due to COVID around getting to and from vaccination appointments. This partnership, I think, is great. It's very innovative. And this program is continuing to take requests as well as partnering up with agencies so that their clients, again, can get the information that they need if they wish to be vaccinated. We also retired, there's a retired TriMet paratransit bus donation to nonprofits. So I didn't even know this, but when Lyft vehicles reach the end of their service, they are auctioned off and donated to public agencies. So I think it's it's a great way of giving back to the community. We heard last month about just the repurposing of these vehicles to, even provide food in certain neighborhoods, being like a mobile food market, which is a great idea. So we wanted to just lift up some of these nonprofits like the Black Futures Farm, the Urban League, and the Bybee Lakes Hope Center, were other organizations who received a vehicle. And then we also launched an online support request form. These are for nonprofit organizations whose mission, vision, and values align with ours, and they can request to be sponsored by TriMet for things that they're working on. And then, as Dr. Lewis mentioned, we went into a discussion around reimagining public safety. The RFP is now soliciting proposals, so TIAC members heard that announcement, and I'm sure there will be many folks who are wanting to apply. And we also went into a conversation around really trying to set the equity, trying to set an equity lens and equity and safety, coupling that together because that is so critical. So TIAC members had an opportunity to review our current working draft business plan. And again, one of the areas that they, that our team, I think, did a really great job was really posing, right, safety and equity, that this is something that we are going to be focusing on in all of the areas of our business plan, not just one area, because it is a critical component. And so a question was raised by some TIAC members, and we went into a pretty robust discussion of, well, when we talk about safety, right, who defines that? How are the different groups with their experiences, such as young people, people of color, seniors, immigrant, houseless folks. Just these are voices from our TIAC members saying, it's really important to define, right, like just the lenses that different communities bring when we talk about safety. So I think the takeaway from this is that there is just going to continue to be more conversations around the Reimagining Safety Project and TIAC and how we can better collaborate or partner, and really, again, trying to provide the best system, the safest system out there for everyone. And just a couple of other questions: how are equity values being applied to the business plan? How has this vision evolved? And then members, again, continue to reiterate the importance of aligning our strategic priorities with riders' expectations of the transit system. So as you can see, we're not going to figure this in one meeting or overnight. So this leads me to conclude to just my last shout out, which is I was able to meet with Director Gardner and his team, Martin Gonzalez and Amparo Agosto, to really just talk about, setting the vision and setting the goals for TIAC for this upcoming year. So we had a great discussion with the team. They had some ideas, I had some ideas, and where we landed is that we want to do sometime in April or May, sort of a TIAC retreat to really, try to get the feedback that we need from our members, but also outline our goals for this committee for the next year, given all of their feedback and input. So to be continued, but I'm really excited, again, that we just have a great staff that's supporting this work. We have TIAC members who are fully engaged in our mission, and they want to continue having these important discussions with us. So I will wrap up my report, but thank you for letting me go just a tiny bit extra. And happy to take questions.
Thank you, Director Way. And are there any questions?
I don't have a question, but I do have a comment.
Okay.
I'd like to thank Director Way for encouraging me to attend and also letting me know that there was a rally at the on February 4th on the Rosa Parks Transit Equity Day. And I think it's important for us to recognize that oftentimes there are groups and individuals that may be criticizing TriMet and have issues and concerns that perhaps need to be addressed. And if we don't engage or at least listen to their issues and concerns, oftentimes we're going to be left to hear second and third hand on what their issues and concerns are. And so it was really an eye-opener for me to be there at that event and be able to hear their issues and concerns and that were being raised at that time. And so I think it's, like I say, I can't express how important it is for us as directors to attend these events That doesn't mean that we're necessarily supporting their agenda. All it means is that we're there to listen and to learn. And I think that's important.
Thank you, Director Edwards. All right, now I think it's time for us to turn to the General Manager for his monthly report. General Manager DeSue.
Good morning, President Simmons, members of the board, staff, and the public. Thank you for being with us today. So this morning, we will be sharing timely information with you on updating you on our COVID-19 precautions, briefly reviewing our January ridership. We will share with you a milestone in TriMet's public art program. And then we're going to give you a report on redistricting process for the districts represented by the board. And then finally, we'll take a moment to recognize an operator who demonstrated bravery while on the job for the safety of others. So I'll start here. Reports of new cases of COVID-19 among TriMet employees have slowed. Just as we've seen it statewide, we continue to require masks inside our facilities and in-service buses and trains. The governor's office has indicated that it would lift indoor mask requirements by the end of next month, and we will keep an eye on the federal requirement by TSA that requires masks worn on board public transit through at least March 18th. We will be responsive should those mask requirements change as well. Now turning to the January ridership report. In January, TriMet provided 3.79 million rides. Last month, ridership was 25% higher than January of 2021 and about 52% lower than ridership in January 2020. A few months before the start of COVID-19 pandemic in Oregon. I do want to share with you an exciting anniversary for TriMet and the communities we serve. March 2022 will mark the 25 years of TriMet's public art program. Its roots stretch back to artwork that came with the Max Blue Line West Side Project in 1992. On the heels of that success, the formal public art resolution that established our public arts policy was signed in March 21, 1997. That policy has now cultivated art across all 5 Max lines. And to mark the 25th anniversary, we will feature a series of special buses featuring the work of artists whose contributes art to our transit system. Each bus will debut in conjunction with a month of cultural recognition. Our first bus features a piece by an artist who goes by Echo and depicts an image of a mother and a son for Black History Month. We are also developing partnerships and planning educational opportunities and small celebrations around the public art collection and really invite you, the board, and the public to join us. Turning now to a housekeeping item that is procedural in nature, but an important requirement per state statute. President Simmons and board directors, you each represent one of 7 districts in TriMet's service district. After each new federal consensus, TriMet is required to reassess those districts to make sure that they are balanced when it comes to population. With me today is Executive Director J.C. Bonetta. He's going to explain further and the process that's getting underway. So J.C., I'll turn it over to you.
Awesome. And Kim, are you pulling up the presentation? Oh, there you go. Perfect. Right on the money. So good morning, President Simmons and members of the board. As General Manager DeSue indicated, TriMet must do what is called redistricting due to the 2020 federal census data recently released. Next slide. For the members of our community watching this morning, I'm going to first explain how TriMet is governed and the board established. Then I'll share the Oregon Secretary of State's direction on how and why we must redistrict. I'll touch on the updated data from the 2020 census. Bibiana McHugh, our manager of mobility and location-based services, will go over 3 scenarios for adjusting the board districts that she has developed with her team. And finally, I'll explain the timeline and process for redistricting. Next slide, please. As our board of directors, you have each been appointed by Oregon's governor to represent one of 7 districts that make up our service area, and you must live within the district you represent. Those districts have been structured to be approximately equal in population. Next slide. Per state statute, the district boundaries must be reevaluated after each new federal census using updated population data. The Secretary of State has given all Oregon transit districts further direction on this requirement, and we are working with their office as well as in coordination with Lane Transit District and Salem Chariots to ensure we are all working together to meet the same statutory goals. Next slide. As we look at balancing our existing districts, the aim is that they be contiguous, be of equal population, use existing geographic or political boundaries, not divide communities of common interest, and be connected by transportation links. A new requirement in the Secretary of State's rule is that any changes be consistent with the diversity, equity and inclusion, and accessibility values of the Secretary of State, as outlined in the agency's mission, vision, and values. Next slide. TriMet is well aligned with the Secretary of State's values for diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. We consistently conduct thorough public outreach and engagement, and we've recently expanded our outreach through partnerships with community-based organizations to encourage feedback from people in communities of color, those who are transit dependent, and others who have felt underrepresented. Next slide. The new data from the 2020 census shows the total population now for the TriMet service district is 1,655,186 people. That's an increase of 182,855 people from the previous census. Splitting the 7 districts in our service area by equal population would mean each district would contain about 236,000 people. Next slide. So here's a quick look at our current district map, which I know you all are familiar with it as you are familiar with your own districts. So we won't spend too much time there. Next slide. Now take a closer look at the updated populations based on existing districts. And I know this slide is small for our viewers at home, but our board members, it's slide 9 in your packet. As you see, each district has had a population gain, but some, District 2 covering North, Northwest, and portions of Southwest Portland, District 1 in Washington County, and District 7 in Clackamas County have had the greatest gains respectively. Now I'm going to bring in Bibiana McHugh to explain the 3 map scenarios, next slide, that we will be assessing to balance the populations of the district. But I do want to note that in all of the scenarios, all current board members still reside in their assigned districts. I would also note that we did bring in a consultant, Steve March, who has worked on a number of redistricting efforts for various entities. Most of late was Washington County. So we have also gotten some outside consultation as we have put these updates together. So Bibi, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, JC. Again, as you said, the new district scenarios were generated based on population and the borders along existing geographic or political boundaries. Then we looked at the demographics and found that the difference between each scenarios was very minuscule, below 0.2%. When we look at scenario 1, it represents the simplest change. It has 2 areas of boundary changes, with a portion of District 2 moving to District 5 and a portion of District 5 moving to District 6.
Hey, Bibi, I think
Yes?
we have to advance the slide, Kim, if you're able to. Forgive me, you were making some comments. So now your comments are appropriate for scenario 1, Bibi. Sorry about that.
Okay. No problem. Thank you. Well, equal population in scenario 1 would be 236,000. In this scenario, District 1 would have the largest population at 240,900, and District 6 would have the smallest at 231,552. This is a difference of 938 people. Please advance to scenario 2. Thank you. Now, scenario 2 has moderate changes with 3 boundary adjustments that bring us a little bit closer to the target of 236,000 for equal population distribution. Border changes would affect districts 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6. Now, District 2 would have the largest population, which is the case with our current districts, and would have 240,600. District 4 would have the smallest population of 232,000, and that's a difference of 8,253 people. Advance to District 3, please. District 3, this scenario brings us the closest to equal population by district, but comes with numerous border changes and adjustments to all districts except District 7. District 2 would have the largest population at around 236,000, and District 3 would have the smallest population of 236,103, a difference of just 743 people. Now I'll toss it back to JC to talk about the process for determining which scenario will be forwarded to the Secretary of State's office.
Awesome. Thank you, Bibi, and thank you and your staff. And also, I know Steve March is listening. Thank you so very much, Steve, for all of your help. So with this presentation to you, President Simmons and directors, we begin today launching our public communications and engagement efforts for the redistricting process. Now through April 15th, TriMet, forgive me, Kim, can you advance the slide? Thank you so much. Sorry about that. Through April 15th, TriMet will collect public comments through our website, TriMet.org, and we will host 2 open houses, conduct outreach with our community committees and partners, and gather feedback from community leaders. TriMet staff will compile the feedback and come back before the board meeting in April with a single map scenario that we will recommend as the final district map. That will be presented as a resolution for your consideration and approval. A final map must go to the Oregon Secretary of State no later than May 15th. And last slide, please, Kimberly. So we have all of this information, and you can poke around on the various maps at trimet.org/board/redistricting. And again, as General Manager DeSue said, this is more of a housekeeping issue. It sounds complex at first, but it's actually pretty straightforward. As Bibi had mentioned, many of the changes are quite minuscule. So with that, General Manager DeSue, I'll toss it back to you.
I appreciate it, JC. Thank you. And President Simmons and board, if you have questions, this is my final item here, and then we can answer any questions that you have afterwards. But I want to take a moment here to recognize one of our MICE operators who jumped in and helped when he saw some riders in jeopardy. With me today, I have Manager of Rail Operations, Carissa Nichols. She joins us this morning to share the heroism of operator Chris Parker. So Chris, I'll turn it over to you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, TriMet board members, for allowing us to formally thank operator Chris Parker for his actions in helping to subdue a person who is attempting to harm others. For those who are not aware, on November 19, 2021, at the Clackamas Town Center station, Chris witnessed a person repeatedly slashing at 2 passengers with a pair of scissors. As soon as he became aware of the situation, he contacted Rail Control and TriMet Operations Command Center, which we call the OCC, and notified them of the issue. Then when he saw the passengers couldn't restrain the agitated individual on their own, he then stepped in to help disarm and restrain the person until police arrived. And then after being asked about the incident afterwards, he noted that he helped because he couldn't stand by and just watch people get hurt. So Operator Parker's selflessness and quick thinking helped to de-escalate a situation that could have turned out very differently. So we just want to thank Chris for his actions on that day, and we are very grateful to have you as a rail operator. Before I hand this back to you, though, I do want to mention that Chris has been known for being a kind and courageous person. He once received a commendation for putting out a small brush fire with water bottles that he had in his car. Chris was in his uniform at the time on the way to work, and the caller expressed their gratitude and amazement at his action. So it's clear to us that TriMet is truly lucky to have Chris. And I should also mention that he was in the Army. So I also want to say thank you for your service on that. So, and that speaks to his valor. So I want to now turn this back to you. If you guys have any questions or anything that you would like to say.
Well, first of all, before we open it up to the board, Chris, thank you for your service to our country, first and foremost. I would like to personally thank you for going above and beyond the job description and doing the right thing to help others. You've exemplified caring and compassionate customer service, and I really appreciate you. We have world-class operators that work here at TriMet, and you've exhibited exemplary service, and I really, really appreciate that. So again, thank you, and I'll open the floor up for comments to the board.
Director Edwards.
Thank you, Linda. I just appreciate when we are able to acknowledge our operators for who they are, because this is really talks about who you are. And I really appreciate the fact that we have folks that step up, because too often you're doing what you do, which is above and beyond, and you don't get recognized for it. And I know you don't do it for recognition, but it's often good to just get a pat on the back sometimes, or just an acknowledgement of the good work that you do out above and beyond what you're called to do. So thank you again for being a good citizen. Thank you for being a good employee. Thank you for representing TriMet well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Director Gonzalez, did you have a comment related to this or another item? Because your hand's been up for some time.
Yeah, I had a question about another item. I wanted to give other board members a chance to comment, but while I have the floor, thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for your courage, your leadership, your heroism.
Thank you.
Director Lewis, and then Director Bauman.
I just wanted to say, thank you, President Simmons. I just wanted to say thank you, Chris. You have a big heart. Thank you for such a great task and stepping out and stepping up. So I just want to say thank you. Glad you were there, and what bravery. And thank you for being who you are.
Director Bauman.
Yeah, Chris, I just wanted to weigh in and say, thank you for your compassion and your service and your bravery. You're a great example for all of us as to what it means to be really engaged in the community and looking out for others. So thank you. I'm really glad to hear your story and glad that you're here today.
Thank you.
Does anyone else want to make any comments? Do you want to make a comment at all, Chris?
I just want to say I appreciate everybody's kind words. It means a lot to me. I did what I hope anybody would do in this situation, and really just not just for themselves, but for the people that we serve. So I appreciate it.
Well, we're grateful that you're a member of the TriMet family. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
General Manager DeSue?
All right. Again, Chris, thank you for being here, and thank you for your service and bravery. President Simmons, that concludes my report for this morning.
I see where Director Gonzalez has a question for you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the floor, President Simmons. So yeah, my question actually goes back to the redistricting topic. I understand the impulse to balance the districts from a population standpoint. Can you please speak to what else redistricting does for either service planning, operating, fund allocation? What other implications does this have, or does it have implications for the public?
Director Gonzalez, it has no implications on those pieces that you just mapped out. Our service is done holistically as we look at service across our district. Each of the funding is not broken out per district or anything like that. So quite literally, this is just an exercise to make sure that all of our board members are representing roughly the equal amount of people.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Absolutely.
And Director Edwards, your hand is still up. Do you still have a question or
Yes,
not?
thank you. I took it down and brought it back up.
Okay.
I do have a question of Director Dessou. General Manager Dessou. I'm sorry. I want to know: is there a way to quantify the enhancements that you have made to attracting operators and retaining operators, that we can kind of get a read on how that has impacted that improvement in retaining and attracting new operators?
Yes, I can actually provide that. Can we bring up both Rochelle Glaser and also Kim Sewell? Can we just promote them into the panelists?
Yes, I've just moved them into the meeting. Thank you.
So Kim, why don't you start off with the HR side of it on what we've done so far?
Sure. Thank you, Sam. And thanks for the question, Director Edwards. We currently are seeing some increase in numbers for our operator recruiting classes. I think the latest, what we had a previous class that I believe was 15, up from about 4 to 6. And our most recent class, we have 10 identified with the potential to increasing a couple of additional class members. And we did just send one of our recruiters to an out-of-state recruiting event that we're hoping will also draw some applicants from out of state. Rochelle may talk about this in a moment when she takes the floor, but we do have a committee that is starting up tomorrow focused specifically on operator shortage, but shortages elsewhere in our frontline staff. And we will be identifying additional ways to continue to track and improve our staffing numbers. As far as having one place to go to for that, it's a good idea, Director Edwards. And I think what I'll do is have one of my recruiting staff members sort of keep track of that in one document, just to make sure that we are aware of all of our efforts and the result of all of our efforts for our recruitment and retention issues.
Director Edwards, we would also, I'll be remiss, I want to bring in also Rochelle Glaser. We took this as an emergency. We created a executive steering committee that is looking at operator shortages and retention. And both Rochelle and Kim is part of that committee, but Rochelle is the lead on it. So Rochelle, any update that you would like to provide the board?
Good morning. So one update I will provide is that as we've continued to receive applications, our biggest focus right now is getting folks processed and getting through those interviews. And the reason for that is that we don't want that to draw out. We don't want to lose any potential candidates. And so we canvassed internally, and we're hosting 6 interview sessions per day. We did have upwards of 100 applicants. And so our goal right now is to get all of those processed. And we had 37 days of interviews. We are down to 26. And again, 6 interviews a day, getting those folks processed as quickly as possible so that we can not lose out on that hiring pool. The other quick thing that I'll mention is that as we started to onboard, we have seen an increase in class sizes consistently over the last 2 months. And so with our steering committee that we're going to be holding, our goal is to get that up to 22 individuals per class. And so that is our goal. And as Kim mentioned, we do have our first meeting tomorrow. So we'll continue to drive those initiatives internally and focus our efforts on getting those applications processed as quickly as possible.
Thank you very much. I would hope that we don't compromise our standards and values while we're doing this.
Agreed.
Director
Absolutely.
Edwards.
Okay, seeing no further questions for you, General Manager Dessou, I think we will move on then to actually the consent agenda and then the resolutions.
Thank you.
Items appearing on the consent agenda are considered routine and may be approved by the board in one blanket motion. This morning, we just have one agenda item, and it's the minutes from our January 26, 2022 meeting. Is there a motion to approve the resolution? And I need you to speak your name because I may not see hands raised at this point.
This is Keith Edwards, so moved.
Thank you, Director Edwards. Is there a second?
Thomas Kim, second.
Thank you, Director Kim. Does anyone wish to make a comment or a correction on the minutes? Hearing none, I'll ask for the vote. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Same sign. The motion carries. So now we'll move into the resolutions. We've got a number of resolutions today. And the first one is Resolution 220204, adopting a revised investment policy that Director Bauman mentioned was previewed in the Finance and Audit Committee today. Mr. General Manager, your comments.
All right, thank you. Again, President Simmons, members of the board, the first resolution to come before you today seeks adoption of TriMet's revised investment strategy. This is in response to the current investment policy adopted by the board, which states that the policy will be reviewed annually in accordance with state law. A copy of the revised policy is available online and in your packet for review as Exhibit A. It includes a brief summary of changes. There is no financial impact associated with this resolution. I recommend your approval.
Thank you, General Manager, for your comments. Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
This is Ozzy. So moved.
Thank you, Director Gonzalez. Is there a second?
Laverne Lewis, second.
Thank you, Director Lewis. Does anyone wish to make a comment before we vote? Hearing none, I'm going to call for the vote. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Motion carries. We'll go to the next resolution, which is Resolution 22-02-05, authorizing a contract with Summit Strategies Government Affairs, LLC, for federal legislative services. Mr. General Manager, your comments?
President Simmons, members of the board, this resolution allows us to contract for federal legislative services. As we start to receive significant funding from the federal government, it's critical to maintain productive relationships with the Department of Transportation, the Federal Transit Administration, and those in Congress. This contract will help ensure that the public transportation interests of the greater Portland region, and specifically TriMet, are represented at the national level. For this contract, Summit Strategies Government Affairs, LLC, emerged as the highest qualified proposal responding to TriMet's RFP process. Its proposal was the highest scoring and represented the best value to TriMet. Summit has established relationships with the FTA staff, Oregon's congressional delegation, and other members of Congress. In addition, Summit stood apart from other proposals with a presence in both Portland and Washington, D.C. The proposed contract is for a 5-year term for an amount of $1.18 million and is covered in the Public Affairs Division annual operating budget. Summit has 10 employees, and of those, 20% identify as minority and 30% identify as female. I request your approval.
Thank you, Director or General Manager Dessou, something that I wasn't aware of previously was that the agency has had a representative for federal legislative services for the past 5 years. So this is a new contract, but it's a practice that the agency has had in the past. Director Way, you have a comment.
Thank you, President Simmons. Yes, I just have a question, just maybe for members of the public who may be listening in, and this may be for General Manager Dessou, but can you just explain what might be the type of federal legislative services or asks that this particular firm would be representing for us at that level?
I'll start. I'll ask Kim if you can elevate Tom Markgraf up as well. We have a possibility of a large infrastructure bill that's coming in front of us. So we would need someone in Washington, D.C., kind of going to hallways and actually talking about the projects that we are doing here at TriMet and the greater region, like battery electric buses, the infrastructure changes that we actually need here, the bridge, the tolling processes, everything that's related to us in the region and also to TriMet. Is Tom elevated?
I think I am.
Okay, you are.
Okay, there we go. Hi, Director Way. You know, this is a really critical time with the infrastructure bill because while Congress has just passed the bill, the rulemaking process is now just starting. And so this is a critical time for us to work with the FTA in establishing, how the rules are written and how allocations can be made. So as one congressional staff person said to me, Congress's work is done. They've passed the bill already. Now it's the time to implement it. So this access and their connections and knowledge of how the FTA functions and how rules are written is really critical.
Director Way, I would also just note that to your question, what are the people on the phone going to get from these services, so to speak, our riders? And it quite literally is helping us connect the dots in Washington with the funding. We actually just had a workshop 2 weeks ago to really look through what money is available and how we can go after it to bring more service, better amenities to all of our riders in the district.
Yep.
Thank you, staff. That's super helpful. And if I may, and you may already have this in your plan, but just for me, speaking personally, I think it'd be great just to get just regular updates on just these efforts that are happening in Congress, what our government folks are doing, and just so that we have a sense of what's happening. But really appreciate this work, and I will be voting for this. So thanks.
Thank you.
Director Way, I just want to say to you also as that I'll be talking to President Simmons, so we'll do some education sessions here with this as well as we move through this year.
All right. So is there a motion to approve this resolution?
Keith Edwards, so moved.
Thank you, Director Edwards. Is there a second?
Kim,
Lori
second.
Bauman, second.
Let's see. I heard two things. So who wants to claim the second?
Lori.
Director
I
Bauman?
will.
Okay. And does anyone else wish to make a comment before we vote? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to call for the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And
Aye.
sign opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. The next resolution is resolution 22-02-06, and it is authorizing an increase to the total amount of the contract for J.E. Dunn Construction Company for construction management general contractor services for the Powell Garage Replacement Project. General Manager, your comments, please.
Thanks, President Simmons. Members of the board, this resolution increases the amount of our contract with J.E. Dunn, our contractor for the Powell Garage Replacement Project. The last action on this contract came in June of 2019 when the board approved the modification to bill out the bus electrification program at Powell Garage. The modification brought the total contract authority to $139 million. The resolution before you now seeks to increase the contract authority by an additional $7.4 million. The modification is needed for a couple of things. For change orders that are due to the factors outside the contractor's control and were primarily caused by COVID-19, such as the supply chain issues that we've seen worldwide. To date, TriMet and JE Dunn have engaged in practices that ensure fair and reasonable pricing and will continue to do so with the approval of this resolution. The increased cost is included in our FY 21-22 capital budget program. It's worth noting that JE Dunn is currently exceeding its goals for using disadvantaged business enterprises. In their original proposal, JE Dunn stated an intent to use certified subcontractors for 20% of the work and has achieved 27.5% DBE participation. Your approval of this resolution is recommended.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve this resolution?
Ozzie Gonzalez.
Thank you, Director Gonzalez. Is there a second?
Second, Kim.
Thank you, Director Kim. Before we vote, does anyone wish to make a comment?
I have a question. Do we get any help from federal COVID dollars in issues and situations like this?
Let me bring up both Steve Brookshire and Steve Witter again. Or Nancy. If Nancy's out there, she could tell us right away.
General Manager, if I could address board members' comment first, and then would really appreciate a view from finance. Some of these costs are COVID related, Director Edwards, and we're working on settling those out and identifying them discreetly from other costs that are included here. So we will work with finance and certainly, take advantage of federal dollars that can take care of, any COVID related costs. Otherwise, these are changes in the capital project. And what I wanted to note was a little bit of a nuance. This is not an automatic, increase going straight to the contractor right now. This is an increase in our change order authority to administrate change orders throughout the rest of the contract. So we've not spent this money, and we hope not to spend this money, but it's just the authority to proceed and complete the contract. So with that, I'll conclude my comment.
So from a financial perspective, it certainly is in the queue as a COVID-related cost. If we have any ability to collect for it on the COVID side, on the federal money, we will, but we also have an opportunity, as we have a few open COVID-related FEMA claims, that we may be able to recover that way as well. But we have it on the queue.
Are there any other comments?
I just want to say thank you. Thank you to Dee and Steve.
General Manager Dessou and board members, it appears that Director Simmons has lost her connection. Vice President Bauman, are you able to take over?
Yes. Bear with me just a minute. We will, hearing no further questions, we will now vote on resolution number 22-02-06. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 I'm back on. Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? the resolution passes, and I'll hand it back to Linda.
I do apologize. I'm at the TriMet Harrison Square offices today because my internet at home hasn't been working. And so far today, my system has crashed twice here. So I think technology is just being totally overused. So I will start my video. And Director Bauman, which resolution did we just pass? Was it the
That
JC?
was 22-02-06. That was
Okay,
the
great.
CMGC
Okay,
contract.
great. So now, thank you so much for stepping in. I should actually provide you with my notes so that if this continues to happen.
Yes,
So,
I have, and Linda, I will say I have a copy of the script, so I'm ready
good.
if you go out.
Okay, great. I'm so glad. Thank you. The next resolution is 22-02-07, authorizing a modification to the contract with Northwest Testing, Inc. for material testing and special inspection services, also for the Powell Garage replacement project. Mr. General Manager.
President Simmons and members of the board, the resolution before you also, in regards to the Power Garage replacement project, requests a contract modification with Northwest Testing, Inc. This is a company that provides inspection service for the specialized materials used for project construction. Some of the activities on the project require daily inspection and testing, and some require constant inspection. Given these very strict inspection guidelines and additional costs associated with and compounded by the pandemic, as well as the historic and impactful weather events we have experienced, the project has been delayed. We must seek additional contract authority to continue these required inspection services through completion of the project. Now the project is scheduled to open in late September. The modification would increase the contract by $300,000, an amount that is within the construction budget for the project. Northwest Testing only bills for time and materials up to the authorized contract amount. With these services being vital to the project's forward progress, I ask for your approval.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
Lori Bauman, so moved.
Thank you, Director Bauman. Is there a second?
Director White seconds.
I think Dr. Lewis got it.
Okay. Thank you, Director Lewis. It's been moved and seconded. Does anyone wish to make a comment before we vote? Seeing no hands, I'm going to go to the question. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Same sign, those opposed. Hearing none, motion carries. Going on to resolution number 5 for today, which is resolution 22-02-08, and another Powell Garage replacement project, provided a contract with Northwest Testing for geotechnical inspection services. Mr. General Manager, your comments.
Again, thank you, President Simmons and members of the board. As mentioned, this resolution is to modify another contract we have with Northwest Testing concerning a Power Garage replacement project. This resolution deals specifically with geotechnical inspection services provided by the firm. Such services are required through the end of the project in accordance with good engineering and construction practices, as well as permit requirements by the City of Portland. Given the project's delay of approximately 1 year, additional resources are necessary to continue geotechnical testing and inspections through completion. The modification will increase the total contract amount by $100,000. Your approval is recommended.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. Is there a motion to approve this resolution?
This is Ozzy Gonzalez, so moved.
Thank you, Director Gonzalez. Is there a second?
Kim, second.
Thank you, Director Kim. So it's been moved and seconded. Does anyone wish to make a comment before we vote? Not hearing or seeing any hands up, I'm going to call for the question. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Same sign, anyone wishing to oppose? Hearing none, motion carries. Our final resolution for today is 22-02-09, and it's authorizing a modification of a contract with Shields Oblitz Johnson for construction management, project management services for the Max Red Line extension and reliability improvement project. Mr. General Manager, your comments.
President Simmons, members of the board, the final resolution to come before you this morning requests a contract modification regarding our Better Red project. Shields Oblitz Johnson, or SOJ, that I'll refer to, has been providing construction project management services for the project. The resolution seeks a contract modification for an amount of just over $1 million from the initial contract amount of $500,000 for additional construction management. As the project has moved past the design phase and into the construction, the need for additional construction management services has evolved and expanded. In order to meet FTA grant requirements and project deadlines, it has become necessary to continue using additional outside construction management personnel from SOJ for the construction phase. Funds are included in the engineering and construction budget for 2022 through 2024. SOJ was chosen based on a competitive selection process, and the firm is self-performing all of the work. Your approval is recommended.
This should be rock solid.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. For those of you who noticed in your email, Kimberly had sent you a explanation. I had raised questions about this because I didn't understand the sequence of events that led up to us now seeing it as a board member. So it was helpful to me, and for those of you who saw it, it was hopeful to you to understand how we went from a under $500,000 contract to over $1 million contract. So is there a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Thank you, Director Edwards. Is there a second?
Director Way, second.
Thank you, Director Way. Anyone wanting to make any other comments before we vote?
I'd just like to make a comment, President Simmons. Thank you for asking those questions and helping to clarify the issues surrounding this. I certainly appreciated that.
You're welcome. Okay, so with no further comments, I'm going to call for the question. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Same sign, anyone wishing to oppose? And hearing none, motion carries.
President Simmons,
yes.
I'm sorry. I don't know if this is a typo, but is the date at the bottom supposed to be February 23rd, 2022?
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to point that out. That
Okay.
Probably just a typo, but we're not going back last year.
No, we are not going backwards. No. Oh, you're absolutely correct. Yes. On the actual resolution, there is a typo. It needs to be 22. Yeah. Good catch, Director Way. Thank you. So if there's no other business to come before the board, then I'm going to adjourn the official board meeting. However, well, let me first say this. Our next regular scheduled board meeting is March 23rd. And I want the board members and the public to know that it will continue to be a virtual meeting. However, I anticipate that beginning with our April meeting, we will go back to having in-person board meetings. And that will be after the indoor mask mandate has been lifted. So hopefully, I know I'm looking forward to meeting with you all face to face and not using technology, since I seem to be having more complicated issues. However, today, following this meeting, we're going to have a briefing on the final proposal for the annual update for the business plan provided by Alan Leto. So first, however, I'm going to suggest a short break, and wanted to know if and what you wish. Do you want 5 minutes, 10 minutes? What would you like? 10 minutes. I see Ozzy's hands and anyone else that might have had that. So let's get back at 10:25. And be sure to mute your mics.
Okay. We should leave.
There. They changed computers on me. All right. Are we all? So much for technology. And then this one is higher, so I have to sit taller. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Is everyone back? Okay. So this morning, oh, would you close the door? Thanks. Now we're getting feed. This morning's board briefing provides a follow-up to the presentation we received last month from Director of Business Planning and Asset Management, Alan Lato. And I know that Alan provided in Nextcloud, the draft updated business plan, and it required quite a bit of time to review it. I do want you to know ahead of time that I submitted written comments to Alan prior to this meeting, and you will have the opportunity, if you don't have comments for him today, to provide him with feedback by just emailing him following this briefing. But I want to thank you, Alan, for being with us this morning, and I'm going to turn the briefing over to you.
Great. Thank you, President Simmons. Hopefully you all can hear me. I appreciate the ability to present to you the draft business plan for FY23. So this is the plan that would go into effect starting July 1st of 2022 for the 5-year period. But of course, as we all know, things keep changing, so we have to update it each year, and this is the update for this coming fiscal year. The presentation I've got is just a little bit of introduction, especially for those of you who have not seen the previous year's business plans. And then some excerpts from the plan itself. So the full plan is, of course, available in your packet. By sometime by the end of today, it will be available online to the public and anybody who is interested in looking at it. And our public comment period, as President Simmons was mentioning, it extends all the way through the end of March, actually to April 1st. So happy to take comments from anybody, anytime during that period, and we'll take all of those into account as we are putting together the final, which we will present to you at the April board meeting. And so if you could advance the slide there. Just a few slides just on the background. So why do we have a business plan? Well, this is only the 6th year that TriMet has had a business plan. But the idea is that things are complex. It's a big agency. We're trying to accomplish a lot. We have a lot of team members. And it is absolutely critical that we understand our priorities, we discuss our priorities, understand the resources that are needed to make progress on those, to better define and align our efforts, and to really connect our purpose and goals and mission to our actions. And so that's the purpose of the business plan. And all of the pages of detail are how we turn that into action. The next slide. We talk a lot about alignment, trying to align our efforts, alignment between all the various groups within TriMet, and making sure that we are truly aligned to work together. And this is the classic example, I think, of the majority of what we do is our operators are out in a bus, in a train, in a lift paratransit vehicle every day, doing their best to provide safe and on-time service for our customers. But in order to do that successfully, they're supported by a whole host of people including those shown on the screen here, like trainers and transportation management, planning and scheduling, finance, information technology, field operations, bus and rail maintenance, service workers, purchasing in stores, customer information, and many more that aren't shown on here, with lots of different jobs to set them up so that they have the tools, the equipment, the time, the training to be able to provide that mobility and service for all of our customers. Next slide. And that alignment and the priorities are essential because it all comes down to capacity and choices, just like every large organization. Every good thing we do means that there are fewer resources for every other good thing that we could do. So we've got to be focused and strategic and think about what we're trying to accomplish. Next slide. We're driven by our purpose, which is outlined in one of the pages on the business plan, to support our economy and provide equitable opportunity, to ease congestion, to provide mobility for those with few options, to help shape the future of our region, and to help reduce emissions and support environmental sustainability. Next slide. And the overall structure of the business plan and our efforts is guided by the strategy map, which identifies our vision, mission, and values at the top, and then 12 goals in 4 categories that support that. One of the small tweaks we've made this year is to actually number the goals, not necessarily saying that one is more important than the other, but by numbering them, it's easier to keep track. It's easier to identify the goals and the objectives and how they connect. And so that's shown here. And we pay attention to customers, we pay attention to internal business practices, people and innovation, and then the financial foundation for what we're able to accomplish. Next slide. Our strategic priorities, as we discussed and reviewed at the last board meeting, are shown here with ridership, financial stewardship and capacity, employees and employee experience, community and partnerships, and safety and equity, diversity, and inclusion. And as Director Way talked about at the beginning of the meeting, talking about the TIAC meeting where we discussed these as well, safety and equity and diversion and inclusion are shown touching all of the other priorities because they need to be reflected in each of those and constantly in mind. Next slide, please. There are something like 70 measures in the business plan that we track to understand how we're doing, and they reflect on a number of different goals and objectives. And you can see those in the pages of the business plan. I have in the past, a few years ago, reported on all of the business plan measures to the board. I think that becomes tedious for everybody for me to kind of talk through it. But we've done our best to make it very easy to review in the document. And you can see last year's performance and this year's performance, so you get a better sense of trend than in previous years as well. But I'm going to hit the highlights of 9 measures out of that 70 that reflect on our priorities, on our strategic priorities. And you can see a number of them are heading in the right direction. That green star is on target. A red octagon is off target. We don't have any this year that are in the yellow triangle caution category within the priority measures, but we do in the larger sense. So I'll just speak to a few of these briefly. You heard during the operations report earlier today that our ridership is up 25% since last year. That is, of course, still down considerably since before the pandemic, but we are making progress since after the pandemic began. Our on-time performance for bus is on track, on target, actually above target. That has the little COVID symbol asterisk there because though traffic has relatively returned to where it was pre-pandemic, there still is some impact of traffic on on-time performance, and so we need to recognize that. We have done a lot to improve on-time performance, but some of it is being helped by changes in traffic and changes in commuting patterns. Our collisions there for bus specifically are on target. and you can see the collisions for the other modes in the longer list in the business plan. For safety, our lost time injuries rate is above target, and so that's something to track, to pay extra attention to. We have two measures of equity, diversion, and inclusion, specifically out of our equity analysis that we do each year, where we are on time, or on target with on-time performance and vehicle assignments for those lines that serve neighborhoods with higher than average populations of persons of color and or low income. On the bottom line, the employee experience, you can see our turnover percentage minus retirements is higher than target. We are experiencing, as far as I know, pretty much all employers are experiencing a higher than normal turnover during the COVID-19 pandemic. And that's reflected here, always something to pay attention to. And you heard some of our efforts to recruit to help bring in new employees as well earlier during the meeting. The financial stewardship and capacity, there you can see our strategic financial plan guidelines, which we'll be confirming and updating for the final. And then the financial stewardship and capacity, also the bus operating cost per vehicle hour has increased, and that is, I think, in keeping with a number of costs that are going up somewhat during the pandemic, and looking at some of the pressures on operating a smaller set of hours without the ability to reduce costs as quickly as we see the demand decrease. Next slide, please. This is the first of 4 slides that just summarize our goals and objectives. And this is a somewhat new way of portraying them. We've still got the color coding that matches up to the pyramid for categories. These are the customers' goals. You can see the objectives aligned with the goals. And for the first time, instead of numbering just the objectives, we've numbered and lettered the objectives to go with the goal number so that they're easier to connect to each other. Just reading the goals across the top, and I'll leave you to read the objectives on your own. This includes the satisfied riders, satisfied community stakeholders and employers, and supportive broader community. And then you can see the detailed objectives below those, and they're available in the business plan, of course. Next slide, please. Under the internal businesses practices, the 3 goals are deliver safe, efficient, and equitable service. 5, to design and deliver successful projects, and 6, to have business practices that create value and spur innovation and continuous improvement. Next slide, please. This third category of people and innovation includes the goals to ensure a culture of safety, that TriMet is where diverse and talented people want to come, stay, and thrive, and to foster service excellence and innovation. Next slide. And this final category of financial are to be fiscally sound and compliant, to manage assets and ensure safety and optimize value, performance, and resiliency, and to maintain the financial capacity to advance regional expectations for service growth and quality as represented in the regional transportation plan. Next slide. In the business plan, under each goal, you will see a series of accomplishments or progress that we have made, followed by a focus statement, and then followed by key strategic actions that are identified for the FY23 through FY27 period. There are a number of accomplishments. I just want to highlight a few here that we have dramatically reduced our direct greenhouse gas emissions by using renewable electricity and renewable diesel since the last plan was released. We have increased the frequency of detailed vehicle cleaning on top of regular daily cleaning for bus and Max. We have released new customer information and tools at TriMet.org. And our Hop Fast Pass now accounts for something like 86% of fixed route fares, and we've reached 100 million taps during this fiscal year. So really seeing that fully in operations. Next slide, please. The key strategic actions, as I mentioned, are in the business plan. They are arrayed by goal, and there are 88 actions to try and make progress during the FY23 through FY27 period. I mentioned a couple of times the focus and the effort to try and streamline and really focus in. And the 88 actions, while it's a lot, is directly in contrast to the 130 plus that were in last year's plan. And that represents some actions that were completed and some actions that we have made sure to focus in on the ones that really need to be accomplished in the next few years to focus in on those strategic priorities. And here are shown some examples with the strategic priority identified. All of these are ridership connected, the goal and objective number and letter, the identified lead division, which is a new addition to this year's. We've done that in the background in the past, but we wanted to put it in the document now. The key strategic action number, and then the statement of the strategic actions. And the 4 here, 3 of them are related to the comprehensive service analysis, which we're conducting now and next year, and then we'll be implementing the following 2 years. And then training for enhanced customer experience in the next 2 years for all TriMet employees. Next slide, please. So the next steps on the business plan, as I mentioned, we're of course presenting this to you now. I'm happy to take comments from all of you at any point. We also are, in addition to this presentation, releasing it on our website at trimet.org/businessplan, and business plan is all one word. And that's available, and that will be available through until the final is completed. But happy to take comments from anybody at any point until April 1st. That's a Friday, April 1st, 2022, at which point we'll take all of the comments and update a final, which we'll bring back to you in April. You can see on here that we've already met, I already met with the TAC to kind of give them the heads up and had that conversation around strategic priorities. I'm meeting with the Committee on Accessible Transportation in a few weeks. And as I mentioned, we'll be presenting the final business plan to you at the April board meeting, incorporating any comments we get back. Then because the business plan follows our fiscal year, this will go into effect on July 1st, 2022. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Alan. And Director Edwards, you have your hand raised.
Thank you very much, President Simmons. Thank you very much for that presentation, Alan. That's very comprehensive presentation. I have a couple of questions. My first question is, are these benchmarks or goals, if you will, I think it was slide 6. Are they being presented to new employees or the new recruits that are getting ready to come on board so that they understand that this is the environment and of TriMet? My second question is, can we move that date, April 1st, back 30 days? And the reason I ask for that is because the CAT meeting won't be until March 16th. And so that only leaves 2 weeks for folks to respond and get their information in, their questions or comments in that period of time. And I think that's a little bit short. So if we could extend that, I would certainly appreciate it.
So to Director Edwards, to your first question, yes, there is information in a number of places about the business plan, and specifically that slide that you mentioned that has the goals, the vision, mission, values. For those of us who are in the office, consistently they're posted in all of the conference rooms and in a number of different places. It's on our internal TriMet website. I maintain a sort of presentation that does an update on each year's business plan that's available, and it's included in some of the training materials. So I believe there's good awareness, and I certainly do my best to connect with folks to make sure that there is awareness. In terms of the timing, I am at the board's disposal. We have typically had the final business plan come to you before the final budget does, and that would necessitate coming to you in April, which is what's driven the current schedule. But I would take direction from, of course, General Manager Dessou and the board on the timing for that.
Thank you.
Director Gonzalez, you have comments.
Thank you, President Simmons. This comment is about a realization as I was listening through the business plan this time around, looking at the goals and the metrics, and maybe I'm missing it inside of it, and maybe it's genuinely not there, but the concept of service coverage is kind of important to me, and in light of the redistricting conversation. I think looking at the metrics today, ridership is a metric that's certainly on the trending in the right direction, but we've also experienced in the last year reductions in service and areas where we've had to either reduce because of capacity issues on our side, or reduce because we're optimizing the system in a better way. But the concept of coverage kind of really stands out, seeing our region still with such a large footprint and seeing a system that doesn't really have an even level of coverage across the evenly split districts as far as population. So, I wanted to kind of see if there's anything baked into the plan today, or any lens placed in. What room is there for such a lens to really look at coverage? If the idea here is, we want a system that can move people throughout the region and is able to serve people throughout the region in their mobility needs.
Yes, thank you, Director Gonzalez. I didn't highlight it in this presentation, but on, I believe it's page 20 of the business plan, there's a series of measures that do get to coverage connections, basically, looking at the percentage of employment and the percentage of housing that is within access of not just service in general, but we have one measure that's all transit. We have another one that is specific to MAX, and another one that's specific to frequent service, and even one for the past couple of years that's specific to the Division Transit project. And the numbers are going in two different directions, as you'll see. Oh, terrific! Thank you. You'll see on the screen. The ones that are specific to employment. This is reflecting two things. One, well, not two things. Two things wrapped together into one, which is it's reflecting in some ways more the change in employment than it is the change in service. So with the pandemic, of course, early on in the pandemic, employment dropped in a number of locations throughout the region. And our analysis is complicated and relies on some census and other information that really can only be done once a year. And so this data is reflecting it's reflecting 2020 data that wasn't available during the last year's business plan, but doesn't reflect the almost full rebound of employment. So you do see a reduction there, though that has more to do with actually the change in employment. We do also see the change in housing, and it has gone up somewhat for frequent service for Division project and all transit, but down somewhat for MAX stations. And that is just a change in housing and also data availability. It can tend to bounce by a few tenths of a percent each year. So we do have, at the big picture, some measures that will help us, will really flag us as we're moving forward with that kind of issue if we are moving in the wrong direction in terms of coverage. In terms of more specific implementation, those are the kinds of things that we look at when we are doing, for instance, the comprehensive service analysis, to understand, are there areas that we are not covering that we really should be for equity or population change or employment access or other reasons.
I appreciate that, Alan. I'm glad to see that we're layering this in, and to hear, frankly, that we're looking at this data on an annual basis. It'll be really interesting to catch up to what we're learning in reality today.
Yes. Yeah, if I had one wish, it would be to get this data faster.
Things are moving. Yeah.
Director Bauman?
Just have a quick comment, which is that, you know, we've seen, as you've indicated, this is the 6th, I guess, business plan. Is that the right number? And it's gone through changes in how the information is presented graphically, and I just want to give a thumbs up for how this is organized. I like the goals and objectives overview. Yeah, I like how you've kind of broken out the information. It's a little more digestible pieces, and I like the seeing the fiscal year 2022 results in progress also. That's very helpful. So kudos. That's my only comment for now. I'm going to look at it more closely, but for now it looks great.
I second your comments, Director Bauman. I sent Alan a thumbs up email because we've looked at it as the 2 board members who have been on this process from the very beginning. We've seen all the iterations, and this is just so easy to follow. And not that the others weren't, but this, you know, every year, and it takes a lot on Alan's part to think of new ways, new creative ways to make this information more digestible, and really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Director Edwards, you have your hand still up. Do you have another question? You're
Sorry, I apologize. I should have took my hand down.
okay. So I'm looking to see if anyone else wants to make a comment.
Sorry, I was having some camera issues earlier, but if I can jump in, President Simmons. Alan, thank you for this update and progress. And I don't want to repeat what I had already shared with feedback from TIAC members, but we will, this is an iterative process, so I can send in some more additional thoughts and comments that I have around the business plan, and especially focusing on that, the equity portion of this. So thank you for your great work, and also thank you for making your round of presentations for all of our committees.
Great, thank you.
One of the things I noticed in the plan, and I commented it to Alan, that we hadn't been informed as a board that the comprehensive service analysis, the staff have renamed it as, let's see, what is it? Now I've lost my, Forward Together, and hadn't heard that term before. So it's kind of like there, you know, we're so used to different terms. We just have to get used to that one too. All right, seeing no other comments from the board, I'll conclude the briefing. Thank you so much, Alan. You know, that was helpful, and it takes quite a bit of time to read through it and to digest it and to come up with comments. But I know Alan always really appreciates feedback. I do see now that we have a hand raised by Director Lewis.
I'm sorry. I just want to weigh in what Director Way was saying. When I was reading this earlier, if we're going to circle back on the equity and diversity, is to really include our lens and what that is and how it's used. I think that's usually part of the DEI statement and the equity lens that we use. Just want to comment on that.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I hesitate to end the briefing, but if there are other comments, as you know, Alan is just an email away. and a phone call away, actually. And he's very open to talking with each of us in order to get our input into this document. So I'll conclude the briefing for today, and I wish you all a great rest of your day. Stay warm. Oh, now, Director Edwards, now you're raising your hand. You don't want to go anywhere, do you?
I do. Trust me. I don't want to go outside, but but
Well, I mean, I'm looking at that picture behind you. It looks like you are at the beach.
I wish. But I did, this is not for Alan, but I did want the board to consider certainly extending that time. I know it condenses our time, by 30 days, but at the same time, I just think it's important that we provide people the avenue to respond and be able to get their comments in and, and extend that period. So I just wanted to share that with the rest of the board.
Thank you, Director Edwards. Is it possible that we can, just like we've gotten an advance copy, that you can send it to all of the CAT members in advance and ask them, because, it's really hard if you don't have a chance to actually look at it in the completeness to be able to react to it. And then you would use the meeting, the middle of March, to gather their feedback and incorporate it into it. Director Lewis, you've now raised your hand. You want to chime in with Director Edwards?
Yes, I know some of the members from the public safety overlap with CAT. So if you could add, check with John Garner, Allen, and get some of the names and add them, and I'll make sure that that's noted on our next agenda as well.
Okay.
Thank
you.
Great.
Because you're meeting February 15th? No, not February. You're meeting March. You meet every month, don't you?
Yes, we do. Yes.
Okay.
And
I get all of.
maybe I'll just note in terms of CAT, I'm very happy to send this out in advance to anybody. Just got a message from Chris Hunter, who organizes, who's the manager who helps organize CAT, who is happy to send that out. And we typically do, and in fact, we don't post it on the website necessarily, but I do produce a large print version that makes it a little bit easier. And for anybody who has like a screen reader, I believe all of the graphics on here have, a text alternative so that people who are needing to do that are able to take in all of the information.
I know that we're really sensitive to not using paper, but for me to be able to really digest it, maybe it's my generation. I actually printed it all out at home just so that I could just kind of think about it and make notes on paper instead of trying to cross-reference back and forth. And so that was really helpful to me. Director Edwards, do you have further comments?
No, again, I apologize for not lowering my hand.
You just like to raise your hand, I know. Okay, so the third time is the charm for me to conclude the briefing. I don't want to cut it short if we all want to just kind of be together, but if we don't, we'll conclude the briefing, and I wish you all the very best for the rest of the day and the time that we aren't together until we meet again. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a great rest of your day.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.